All right, you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Three, two, one. What's up, Steven? Thanks for joining me. Um,
Hey,
it's kind of weird because when I thought up this format, or when I thought about doing this, I thought, hey, it should be appropriate to do it with you first because I'm gonna call it your average esports podcast colon insight. Basically, it's basically under the whole your average esports podcast umbrella, I guess.
hmm
That's just a part of it. And I thought, it'd be appropriate to do this with you, but then I realized I I feel like I know you pretty well, but at the same time I really don't. You know what I mean?
oh, hmm
Because we talk about a lot, we talk about esports a lot, and I feel like whenever something in esports happens, I have a pretty good idea of how you usually react, or what your thoughts are on a certain topic. But I guess I don't really know you that much outside of esports.
uh, yeah, I guess that's fair assessment.
Is that something that you like? I mean,
Something
just
I did deliberately. You mean?
yeah, yeah.
Uh, I'd probably say so. I mean, he- here's the thing. There is a lot. It's weird when you're talking about me specifically because there is a lot of bleed over if you're looking at like my written works or whatever,
Right.
where you can tell right off the bat like I have pretty strong opinions.
Yeah.
But I generally always just keep it within the esports space, if you know what I mean.
No, for sure.
So that's why. So that's why, like, that's why you got this. You probably get this weird dissonance where, like, yeah, you technically do know me, but you don't really know me, in a sense. Like, but uh, I'll clue you in on this. Like, I'm not really that much different outside of it, just in terms of how I look at things and how my opinions are formed and stuff like that. So
I figured. I mean, I would argue at least that it's a little bit difficult, right, to just change the
yeah.
way you think about things into the way you argue about things.
hmm
But I'm just curious because if for anybody that follows your work and even follows you on Twitter and like watches your stuff, I don't
hmm
necessarily think that they find out a lot about your personal life. Obviously, I think there's bits and pieces that you can find out about you. I mean, you're clearly somebody that has also followed sports, basketball at least.
hmm
So is it by design to basically not put yourself out there as like a more personal person rather just as an esports person? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I'd probably like. Let me see. I feel like you should never give. Uh, what's the what's the phrase I'm looking for? Basically, I think it just feels a lot easier if you're All right, I guess this goes more into my theory of like the importance of game IDs
Mm-hmm.
is the way I put it. Where like every person, as far as I met, has like different personas based off of their situation or their environment or whatever. Like like the Japanese saying, you have an outward face towards
Right.
society, one towards your family and friends, and then one towards yourself, right? It's something
Right.
similar to that extent, where like I actually think if like because I thought about it a lot before I ever actually started writing something, and like or like where you just kind of notice like if you look at celebrities, it doesn't matter what from what realm, like just in general, celebrities like they kind of lose something, right? Because they're always out there, and in general, like the ones that survive are the I won't necessarily call them dishonest, but like they're generally the ones who kind of are able to um, put like set boundaries between their personal life and their professional life and whatever,
Right.
right? So I just thought, well, if I'm looking at like all these different examples, it just seems psychologically healthier to do it that way. But like in general, like I actually don't really care that much. It's just it doesn't. I just don't think it should be like I just don't think my personal life should be a interesting topic in general. I mean, it's not like I'm that big or anything. So yeah.
Fair point. Although do think that you have quite the. I mean, you say you're not big, but I feel like whenever you write something big, which
hmm
you know, let's say if I very vividly remember your Kerrigan feature about like a year ago or a year and a half.
Yeah. Hmm.
You know, those kind of pieces, they reach far. Like Kerrigan himself will retweet it or quote retweet it even because, you know, the pros really appreciate your stuff. So I wouldn't necessarily say that you're not big, but I can see where you're coming from,
Yeah.
especially since you. I mean, that's at least my impression. You'd like to keep like a little bit low profile, even when you are out there. Like you do put your content out there, but you know
Hmm.
you're not gonna go like balls. Well, I'm just gonna put it that way, balls to the walls, like you know Thorin and Richard do
Yeah.
necessarily with their opinions.
But like even with them, like actually I don't know about Richard so much, but certainly with Thorne, like he doesn't actually describe his personal life either. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
But like that's kind of how I see it.
And that's something that I have always found pretty interesting because um, in this esports realm, especially, it does feel like a lot of people do put up like a different persona on online intentionally because it makes sense for streamers because let's face it, if you want to make money in the streaming world, you do have to find like that niche where you can
Yeah.
fit in, and if you have to tweak your personality, I mean that's just what I have to do. But even you know even in the like the whole like I mean now that we talk about Thorin, as far as I know, I mean in the way I've gotten to know him, granted it's only been very limited interactions with him, but his Twitter persona is something completely different than what he is in private, and that's at least what I've also heard from other people. So um, I don't know. Have you ever considered putting like a different persona out there? When you I guess when you got started out in this whole like esports thing.
Yeah, like this is like a random topic because you know like even though I do follow the NBA, it was actually I followed esports, and then what happened was like I followed the NBA after that because
Oh, really?
I got more into competition that way.
Right.
And then there's this funny. I guess we'll segue a little bit into something that's not in esports, but
Sure.
basically there was this funny name that kept popping up, and like everybody kept comparing Thorne to like Skip Bayless, right? And I don't know if you know who he is,
I
but
really don't.
he's basically just like a very loud commentator on sports in and sports in America or whatever, right?
Right.
And basically, what I kind of basically when I looked at because kind of curious I didn't know who he was, but kind of realized something funny about what Skip did because like I started watching him because like his name kept popping up, and I just kind of realized his like even though everybody thinks he's a troll and he's really bad or whatever, his marketing is like top notch, right? And the reason I think his marketing is top notch is because like he puts a persona on for his shows or whatever, and like they're the most extreme versions of him. But like the thing I think most people don't realize is like even though the persona is different from you, it's still you. And I what I mean by that is like there is you have to inherently have some aspect of you that is kind of like that, but it's just exaggerated when you
Right.
go on to like
Right.
the main thing. Um like I'll go ahead and say like I don't think Thorn is I don't think there's any way like Thorne's the type of guy who's just like chilling there in normal life and then just like starts talking shit all the time, right?
No, that's true.
But that's but I bet he is the type of guy who would like talk that kind of banner in like a fun conversational way, but then he just takes that and then he exaggerates it for a show to make it more entertaining. So
Right.
like it's the just what the way I think about the entire thing is like even the persona is simultaneously you and not you. Like I guess that's how I put it. Like it's just an exaggerated version of you. And like the reason I don't do that is because I don't know if I can. I don't think there's like a specific trait in my personality where like I can exaggerate it to that kind of point.
Right.
Like, and then if you don't necessarily have it, you can either fake it or you can like learn to grow into it, I guess. But like I've personally never found like a very real reason to go with that down that route. That's how I'd put it.
That's a fair point. And it's funny that you mentioned that I agree with you though that you know whatever personality or persona you put out there, it kind of has to be part of you. Like I feel like it's so difficult to fake something for so long
Mm-hmm.
because even if you do fake something for so long, at some point it is going to be part of you. Like even if at first it wasn't, if you fake it for so long and live it, you know, if as a streamer, for example, and personally from people that are streamers or from friends that are streamers and or from friends whose friends are streamers, I do notice that those people, even if they do put up a front, at some point it's going to be part of their personality, and it's something that they take into their personal life too, because it's difficult to separate two different personalities that way.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if you remember this, but basically that one time Summit 1G went to play at a tournament, and in the defuse, right? He burns alive because he
All
volleyed
right, the
himself.
1G, yeah.
And the reason he straight up dies is because he was looking down towards Twitch chat.
Oh, was he?
But Twitch chat didn't exist. He
Right.
forgot. Like it was just like subconscious or some shit. Or actually, I
Well,
don't know. That's my joke in my head. That's how I explain it. But he did look down to the left for some reason that nobody knows why. So I just assume it was Twitch chat. But yeah, like it's just like I don't know. Like the whole thing about streaming, and I'm actually find it a little bit surprising, but I guess I shouldn't in retrospect. But like I find it a little bit surprising people want to become streamers so badly, because I think like it's I don't let me think. What's the exact um basically like I don't know if you ever like read Nietzsche, but basically he has this like funny quote that I kind of like remember, where it's basically like everybody looks for rank among people they despise or some shit.
yeah,
And
that's pretty true.
that's kind of how I view like streaming. Like I've never actually met a streamer who legitimately told me like, yeah, man, I love all my fans. I love all Twitch chat and all that shit. Like, no, you love like a part of it, but like the overwhelming part of it is pretty bad in general. But you still want their like approval and their praise and stuff. I don't know. I just think like psychologically, it's not like a great job in general.
I I just had that conversation the other day with somebody. It can't be a great job really long term either. Like realistically, how can you live a healthy life if you spend so much in front of entertaining, like day in day out you entertain strangers on the internet, and
Hmm.
then how you're supposed to maintain like a healthy life balance outside of that. It's hard as is for pro gamers who don't even have to cater to necessarily an audience, because effectively they just have to perform, right? But even
Yeah.
for them, like if they go home and they can't live a healthy life, so how's that supposed to work for someone that has to spend 10 hours a day in his office just trying to entertain random people on the internet?
Hmm. Yeah. Just I don't know. I feel like it's a weird job. Like I wouldn't recommend anybody do it. So it's like I guess I put it like this. It's like one of those jobs where like nobody really understands the psychological impact of it until years later. It's kind of like social media. Like nobody really understands like how it fucks up your mind and shit. So
and
yeah.
it feels like we are currently the generation that gets to sort of like be guinea pigs of this whole thing. Like I'm
Hmm.
sure like 100 years down the line, people in school will learn about all these negative effects in like maybe psychology or biology classes even, where it's like,
Yeah.
yo, if you subject yourself to these certain areas of like social media and like online presence, like
For a long period of time, you become dumber,
yeah,
more
or
entrenched in your ideas.
doesn't even have to be dumber. It's just that you might just like lose certain values, or just
You lose you lose a certain level of openness, and then you increase tribalism. Is how I'd say it generally goes down. And like there's also a weird like cognitive dissonance that everybody has. Like you know what's annoying. You know what's the most annoying thing to me
what?
is is like you'll see this in every esports feed, right? Of every esports person ever, basically. And I agree with them. Basically, like in general, the press, the mainstream press has generally been shit to video games
Yeah,
and esports, right? You know, for decades now. Like, what was it calling us killers and
killer
like
games, social
uh
outcasts.
social outcasts, like psychopaths, et cetera,
Yeah,
right? And anybody who's actually been in that community, and obviously we're like a niche within the niche of that community, right? Anybody's actually even like participated in that kind of realizes it's all bunk, it's all just bullshit, right?
right.
But like what the thing that bugs me is like all of these people kind of realize that it's all bunk and bullshit, but the moment the press goes towards a different topic, they kind of just give them a free pass as if like, oh, maybe they're correct about this, or they just assume they're correct about this. And I always thought that was like kind of like dumb. Like if they're willing to like bullshit about something they don't truly care about at all, like video games, then they'd obviously bullshit about something they actually have like they'd actually have like an actual agenda towards or something they care about, right? Like that's just how humanity kind of works. So I was like, there's like a weird sort of disconnect I see that kind of increases in like that like nobody kind of sees in this generation. I'm not sure.
No, I 100% get you. It's something that it almost feels like as as long as as long as they report or say something that almost reinforces your own ideas. It's like, yeah, sure. Well, I guess this has to be right. I mean, I've always thought this way, but from the same outlet, as soon as it's against you, it has to be like, oh, wow, you guys are actually trash. But once, yeah, I totally see that every day, and it's kind of weird, and I think it's part of the fact that we are so like overwhelmed with information every day
Mm-hmm.
that it becomes almost. I mean, this is a really huge topic, right? But ultimately, it people don't even filter the information or like really think about the information that they consume, and they just
Mm-hmm.
take it at face value. I mean, this starts with not even reading past the headline, but then also just not even questioning the headline or
Mm-hmm.
just content in general. Um, but I mean, you as a writer, surely this is something that you experience every day.
Oh
Um,
yeah, but like I don't actually care because it's not like I'm necessarily interacting with a bunch of readers or whatever, right? So
do people? I'm curious about that though. Do you know? I mean, you do have. I would say you do have like a solid fan base of people that consume your content. Do they
yeah,
ever
like
reach
dozens
out?
of them.
Do they ever? Well, I would say more than that. Maybe you don't have like the most dedicated ones, but again, when you do put out something, I'm pretty sure a lot of people they know your name, and like when I read your stuff and like I go to the Reddit comments, a lot of people will be like, "Oh yeah, it's a cool Stuchiu piece again." So
Yeah, yeah.
do they ever like try to reach out to you and like try to interact with you, or try to like maybe gauge your opinion or thoughts on certain topics?
Some of them do. In general, because like I follow like the Rotterdam rule. I don't know if you know who Rotterdam is, like the StarCraft two
StarCraft,
caster.
yeah.
But basically, at some point in like 2011 or 2012, we kind of came up with this rule, where it's like, um, the moment you hit 4,000 spectators on Twitch, Twitch chat becomes complete shit, right? And basically, I follow the same rule, where it's like I'm willing to interact with anybody until a certain point where the fan base becomes complete shit, but it hasn't become complete shit yet in my case, so it's been fine so far. And or if it has been bad, I can just ignore them. It's not like it's overwhelming. Like
Right.
that's kind of like the there's I haven't hit that point yet, so that's kind of know how I know I haven't made it big is because the
Have
fan
you
base isn't so overwhelming. I need to shut everything down.
have you had any haters though already? That just like
Uh, Probably. I don't really know. Like sometimes I'll just mute somebody if like the argument they're saying is so bad that
right.
like it just kind of hurts my brain.
No, I get that. I get that. You
But
know,
like yeah, go ahead.
so when I noticed those the most, and this is not even actually this is sort of a commentary on him, but whenever I tweet or write or produce any content that's related to EE,
Oh
that's
yeah.
when I get the most sort of like, and I think Richard calls it brain gymnastics kind of arguments,
Hmm.
where they bend over backwards to try to make a point that's so out of like that's so dumb, but they like find like a convoluted way to make it sound somewhat realistic in their head at least, or reasonable
Hmm.
in their heads. Yeah, those people I try to because again like I try, so for me personally, I try to somewhat engage with my followers, like the two or three that do actually try to engage with me. Just because I don't know, I'm always like a community, I've always been like a community person. I just like engaging, but those people, once you engage with them, they just drag you down into the pit of like craziness.
Yeah. Like in ge- in general, if I actually ever met somebody in real life, I'd probably be fine with that because I feel like in general, the interactions in real life are just better because
That's true.
there's a certain level of expectation and social niceties that kind of go out the window when you go on the internet.
Speaking of real life, you were at how many events have you been to?
I can probably count them on my hand. Let me
Yeah,
see.
I know that you went to TI last year.
Yeah, I went to TI last
I know
year.
you went to that ESL Oak
I went to an ESL Oakland once.
Oakland. Yeah.
I
Did
went
people
to
did anybody recognize you at that event?
no, actually only somebody recognized me at post event. And what I mean by that is like I like basically they recognized I wrote some kind of weird first person thing. I was trying to experiment with the writing,
Right.
and somebody recognized me. Oh yeah, I remember him. He was the guy who's like walking around with a book or whatever.
Oh, cool.
Um, went to Oakland. Went to IPL, which is one of the team leagues. Like it was a very small venue. It was like 20, 30 people, I think, or actually it might have been 50 to 100, something like that. I can't really count people. Um, and I think I also went to San Jose once as a spectator. It was like a
Right.
StarCraft tournament.
Right.
I think those are the four.
Has it ever urged you to go to more events?
No, but here's the thing. Like in general, like the whole point of going to I think because I'm like more of a what's the word I'm looking for? I'm more introverted, I guess, is one way to put it. And
Right.
what I mean by that is if like if I'm just going alone, I don't really see a point in going to an event.
Right.
I'd probably go if I knew some friends were going or something like that. Because I think it's way more fun going with friends to an event
No, for
than
sure.
it's going by yourself. Because I think like if I'm going by myself, then I think like the height of enjoyment for me is watching the game and like thinking about the game. And I'll be honest, it's actually like 10 times easier doing that at home on your computer than it is at the event.
And it's more efficient too because you can watch replays. You have access to clips and all that stuff. So if you
Yeah, and if you can find one of those YouTube streams for a particular match, you can always
Oof,
just rewind it, so it's
yeah.
way better.
No, I'm just asking because I mean you went to TI and I thought personally that event has really
TR was fucking crazy, yeah.
that event I think has really helped your Dota work a lot. I mean you had the chance to talk to Seb and to Heen, two of the greatest minds in Dota right now. So
Hmm.
naturally, I think talking to people like them will naturally elevate your understanding of the game and like the meta and like the scene and like how everything works. So I'm just
Hmm.
curious, like, has that particular incident or has that particular event maybe piqued your interest in like at least talking to like pros more on that level?
Hmm. Like a little bit, I guess, but I've always felt like there was a danger in that, and what I mean by that is like, hmm, not gonna call them out by name, but there have been certain like journalists that I thought had a good understanding of their like respective games, but at some point they kind of just gave it up and then they kind of just like uh gave gave up thinking about the game and just like went with whatever the pro said, and I just thought that was kind of like a lame way to go out,
I
just in terms of like analyzing the game.
No, I get that, and I think I mean, that's a danger that a lot of casters in Dota also fall into, and I think the Dota audience in general. Again, this is a different topic, but like the whole a pro will always know better, or the whole like pro always has the best insight. I mean,
Hmm.
yeah, their perspective is really interesting, but I mean, there's a reason why not every pro is on the same level because they are fundamentally disagreeing about
Yeah.
the game, right? And you can, and this is why, if anything, I like it when pros interact with each other on stream. It's not just one pro, but like two or three. That's why I like the BTS events because
Hmm.
then you can actually see arguments happening between the pros, or not arguments, but discussions where they're like, "I think you should have done this," and then they will call each other out and be like, "No, I'm pretty sure this was the right decision." And the fact that they're disagreeing shows you how difficult the game is, and then also and at least it validates me as a spectator, but also as a critic or as a writer, the fact that um, these pros can't even get on one page. So how there can never be one true answer, right? Because if the 0.1% of this game can't even agree on what's the best move, I mean, then surely there has to be multiple answers.
Yeah, like, and it also depends on who you're talking to in general, because like I think this isn't a diss on the general Dota pro, but I'm gonna go ahead and guess most of them don't have the level of insight I got from like Heen or from Seb, right? Like, because I
Yeah, right.
actually also like I actually It was like an off topic, but I thought Crit actually had some pretty good answers too when I interviewed him. I felt like Cuckoo might have had better ones, except he was like kind of there was kind of like a language barrier there,
Yeah.
so I don't think I got the best things out of him. But like in general, like it's not so much being a pro that's interesting. It's more like who who exactly what exactly your ideas are about the game that were interesting to me, right? And I think that's generally the most important part. But like what's good about at least CS is in general like a bunch of the interviewers like HLTV being the prominent ones, but like some of the other like freelancers like Max Millet or Sam DeLorme, whatever, they actually have pretty good interviews in general with the pros that go into the stuff I want to know anyway. So I've never felt like, oh, I have to do this because it's the only way I can get to it.
Right.
Right. Like Thorn does a bunch of them too. For he's even I think he's even done really good Dota ones.
Oh, I agree. His
Right. So like
yeah.
yeah. So in general, like I've never felt an urge like I have to do this because it's literally the only way I'm going to get to this information. So there's another aspect of to it, I guess.
But would you consider doing it if you thought that there was no other way to get to that information?
Um, Probably. So, yeah, like if like I was like the only guy around who was interested in that, then I'd probably have to go do it myself. But luckily, I'm not, so I'm not in that world.
Well, I will say though that in Dota, I feel like the
In
level
Dota,
of
there's nobody like that.
I was about to
Straight
say
up,
Dota. There's just nobody. So
like it's kind of weird. Like for years now, like it feels like the most interesting interviews I saw were actually Thorn's interviews.
Thorns, yeah.
Right outside of that, like nobody really goes that in depth. Like the only other guy that will give you good interviews is like Eternal Envy, but that's because Eternal Envy can't like he can't like there's something weird about him where he can't like not tell his version of whatever the truth is.
I think in general the best interviews have usually been when the player themselves wanted to give their side of the story, rather than somebody like asking the right questions. It was usually just a player giving the right answers.
Yeah, like mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is part of the reason why I was asking, because I think it'd be cool to have somebody like you poke around a little
We'll
bit
just
more.
drag out the answers from the
yeah.
Dota players.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
but I guess it's a little bit difficult considering you live it on the West Coast, I think,
yeah, like
and
and I
there's
think
no Dota events.
every Dota most of the Dota lands are should and I think will from now moving forward should be in Europe and China. Like I actually think I feel like TI kind of fucked up. Like this is off topic. I feel like TI kind of fucked up by sticking to Seattle for so long.
I
It's just
agree.
my
I
opinion.
think it could have been a much grander event. Like the prize pool is cool and all, but the event never felt that spectacular in comparison to say Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Or yeah, I think Worlds is actually pretty much the biggest comparison. You could arguably compare it also to maybe ESL1 Cologne, because ESL1 Cologne to me has always been one of the bigger events in CS.
The ESL one Cologne's very similar, but it's different. Like no, like the reason I think it's just better for TI to go Europe or China is because I feel like that's where its main audience is.
For sure.
That's all,
Yeah, for
right?
sure. Um, I I mean, yeah, they sold out every year at TI, but that's because all those people made that trip for the TI, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And I will say the Canadian trip was pretty good, so I had no complaints there.
I'm so jealous. I love Vancouver as a city, so
And it's a great city.
I would have loved to make that trip. Was it first time in Vancouver?
Yeah, it was real nice, real convenient, like shockingly convenient. Like the first thing everybody told me was like, "Oh fuck, they don't have that fucking Uber. How am I ever gonna do anything?" But it turns out you don't need it for anything. So
There's like good public transportation
yeah, like really
in
good.
Vancouver. All right, this
Mm-hmm.
is actually something that very off topic, but I moved here to Texas about half a year ago,
Yeah.
and there's no public transportation here. What's up with that?
Yeah.
Like,
Um.
goddamn America, really?
So basically, at some point, in the government, I feel like it might have been the 1930s, it might have been the 1940s, maybe even a few decades after that. Uh, at some point, a lobby, like there were basically like two kind of lobbies. One of them was for public transportation, and then the other one was against it. And the people that were against it had more money because they represented the automotive interests, right? And they came to the conclusion that like they did a bunch of very, very like funny sort of gimmicky. Like, I won't call it gimmicky, but like very, very like they basically blitz the advertising thing, where like they kind of they do that thing where like they did the thing that people did with diamonds, where like, oh, this like diamonds became like the symbolism of love,
Right.
but in America, like the cars became the symbolism of like independence, wealth, status,
True.
etc.
True.
And so by doing that, they did that, and then they lobbied like, oh, because the car is such an integral part of American society, we should take that money we were going to put into public transportation and put it into roads and highways and whatever. And technically, America does have a really good highway system, or whatever, but like in general, that's kind of how it went down. And since then, public transportation has been downhill ever since, with a few notable exceptions. But even like the notable exceptions, like New York or whatever, like they don't stand up to like Asian countries or European countries.
I was about to say, yeah, I know that New York is famous for its subways or subway
It's not
system,
that it's not that good
but it's
compared
not
to
great, right?
it's actually I just call it like average. Like everywhere outside of that, like America is basically an F in public transportation. But you go to like Taiwan, you go to like Asia, Hong Kong, you go to the few times I've been to Europe, like public transportation is like B to an A. It's like way better over there.
Asians have perfected public transportation. I've been to
Yeah,
Tokyo, and their public transportation, it is on time. It is on time. You can count it by the second to make sure. Like, you can basically blindfold yourself and just count in your head when you can enter the public train or whatever. That's
yeah,
how accurate it is.
they're it's really really good. Like I'm not surprised at all. Like no, I'm not surprised at all if like somebody lived their entire life in Japan without ever like picking up learning how to drive. Like it doesn't matter. It's such a non-important skill to have over there,
Yeah,
whereas like it's a requirement over here.
yeah. I actually forgot my driver's license in Germany. I would have had to get a new one here anyway if I wanted to drive. Apparently,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, I currently Ubering everywhere because there's no public
Yes.
transportation.
Yep. That's how it goes.
Sucks, man. But yeah, I guess the Vancouver at least had public transportation.
Hmm.
Shanghai, where next TI is also dope public transportation.
Hmm.
Any plans to go to Shanghai for TI?
Nah, man, I don't want to go to China all the way to watch TI. Seems like because here's the thing is like I'm not like I'm nobody's gonna pay for it this time. Like I got paid to go
True.
to Canada. Like there's no way, like even though I'm writing full time kind of for Upcomer, I'm gonna go ahead and guess there's no way they're gonna pay for any of that stuff if I actually went. So I don't think there's a point in me going.
All right, since we're at that topic already, want to talk VP game, VP esports, whatever it's called. What was it called? VP esports, right? VP game is the
Yeah,
official betting site.
VP Game was what it was originally called before it became VP Esports.
Right. So
And still VP Game still exists, but like,
what the hell happened there? They hired everybody, literally everybody, and then they let everybody go after like about 6 months or a
yeah,
year.
basically, I actually don't really understand. I don't to this day really understand what their plan was. And what I mean by that is like, I'm like when I talked to them, it sounded like they had a lot of money and they had a lot of ambition. They're like, oh, we're going to be the ESPN of esports. But like in my mind, I was thinking the ESPN of esports isn't even the ESPN of esports.
I was about to say, yeah. So that's very
So
ambitious.
like, right? And so like they wanted to be this huge site and do all this, all this shit or whatever. But like I just think like if I had to guess, um because it's not like I was involved that much in like the day to day like staff stuff. The way I think what happened was like they were pumping in a bunch of money into all this content, and it didn't pay off because I don't think esports journalism pays off. Like there were months where it was very good, and the months obviously being in and around TI. Like I think the Seb interview I did was like fucking massive, but like that one was just that one just happened to be luck, to be honest.
Did they ever? give you like the stats on your viewership for every article? Were you able to see
Uh,
that, or did you have to inquire about it?
I don't actually care, but I did at some point they started publishing like article views to try to like show people what people were interested in or whatever.
Right,
And I think the second one was like 150,000 or something,
that's solid.
right? It's not bad, but like that one was just pure luck in terms of timing in multiple ways. Because like for like when I was going to TI, I didn't really understand what journalists were going there. So I like when I personally assumed, obviously wrongly, um, in retrospect, I assumed that surely they'd all realize Seb was like if I was like had a if I had a power rank the people you had to interview at I got at TI. I think this is how you should have done it. No tail, fly, PPD, Seb in that order.
I probably would have put Seb even ahead of PPD, but yeah.
Like no, the reason like I put PPD ahead of Seb is just basically because I didn't know if Seb was actually a good interviewer at the time.
Oh, all right.
Because PPD will 100% give you a good interview no matter how
That's
bad the
true.
question is,
That's true.
right? And then the reason No Tail and Fly were ahead of
The
PPD was
drama.
because they were at the very nexus of the drama,
Right.
right? But like what happened was like nobody was fighting me over getting the Seb interview, except for another guy from VP Esports randomly. But even he was like, "Oh, I'll just let you go do it." And like we had very different ideas of how an interview should go because like his were like 10 to 20 minutes, and I sat down with Seb for like I stood up with Seb for like an hour and 20 minutes or something.
So it's funny that you mentioned that because in my experience, Seb has always like I guess we never talked about that, but Seb has always been one of my favorite interviewees because he does give great answers, and he likes to talk about if you give him an inch, he'll give you a mile and then some. If that inch if it's a good inch, right? If it's like
Yeah,
if you hint at basically asking some really insightful questions, he'll bite and he'll just take it
he'll
from
go,
there.
yeah, he'll go all the way, right? Like,
So in that sense, I've always enjoyed it, and that makes me actually surprised that not a lot of people were lining up for him. But it could be one of those things where,
like everybody understood they had to get PPD, but like I was shocked how many people didn't realize they had to get Seb.
yeah, especially since to me it was obvious that nobody was going to get No Tail anyway in terms of interviews. Fly probably was going to do interviews, but probably not.
No, like
Gonna...
I think Fly even said straight up he was going to talk about it after TI,
Oh, all right, well, yeah,
right? Not at the press conference, but like in an interview before leading up to it. So
all
it's
right,
like, and in general, I think Dota the leaders have the best answers.
yep, because they think about the game the most.
They think, yeah, they think about it in ways like normal people wouldn't think about it. Like
yeah,
if I ever ask somebody like, do you think instinct is the ultimate answer to Dota? Like I don't think a regular Dota 2 player would know. Whereas like I talked to Seb, he's like, yeah, I think it is, but then he'd break down like what exactly we think instinct is on like a fundamental level or some
right.
shit.
Um, no, and this is funny. I think you can tell, like, if you ever got the chance to interview every pro player at TI, like let's just imagine you were able to interview all.
Actually, I had interview questions prepared for all of them.
Oh, that's dope. But yeah, let's just imagine you get to interview all 16 teams, all 5 players of all 16 teams. I think just based on the interview, you could have a pretty good grasp of how the team dynamic is in terms of like shot calling and just in general um, team dynamic. Because I think
Mhm.
the people with the best leadership qualities are also the ones that generally give you the best answers and generally also are more engaged in talking, because
Yeah.
that's just their natural persona, right?
Hmm.
Whereas a lot of the carriers, especially from my experience, with the exception of Arteezy and EE, but I think this is pretty obvious. A lot of the carriers will actually just give you like one word answers, just like like grunting and things. So just like
Yeah.
yes,
Like I'd have to look what questions you were giving them or whatever, but like I feel like you have to hit these people like in very weird ways, like not
yes,
normal ways.
no, for sure.
Like I'd have to like deliberate. I had to like go like basically if I was doing one towards like one of those types, I'd probably just take them down like the Kyle route, just like go into item builds and shit and see what comes out of it.
And no, and definitely this is they are more passionate about like the more
I think they were more passionate
um
about the minutia, like
yeah,
because they don't really understand the other stuff, the macro stuff
yeah,
that the leaders do.
which is fine because that's ultimately how the game works. You know, you have like
Yeah.
you're gonna have that balance. That's totally fine because as long as they focus on their shit, like that's perfect. That's what you want actually. You don't want your carry to have
Hmm.
to worry about the macro shit.
Yeah, like I think you're probably a bad leader if your superstar carry is that kind of it is that involved in it. He should know where his play. He should generally know how the game works and how the team play works and stuff. But like, he shouldn't be responsible for having to know the entire like game plan, the entire like fundamental structure of the
That's
team.
that said, I do think that it is important for a carry to also then make the calls later in the game because ultimately that's when the game revolves around the carry,
Yeah,
right?
that's when they understand. That's when
Yeah,
they should understand the game the best. Actually, I think this is something like nobody realized back when Eternal Envy was a good leader. It was like the reason he was getting away with that bullshit is because he actually hit on like a core principle that nobody understood back then. Was like the leader should be the leader is like, I mean, the guy who's making the calls at the end should be the carry
yeah.
because he has the most power in the game.
And I think this is why a lot of people value Arteezy so highly in terms of carrying potential. That's why for the longest time people have held him in high regards, even though he wasn't necessarily at the top. Right now, I actually think he might just be one of the best.
I think
Or
he's basically almost as good or potentially better than he once was at
yeah,
his prime.
I agree. But yeah, no, yeah, he was always regarded highly because, and in addition to just mechanical skill, he was also a really good shot caller in the late game.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. He actually did come from the EE school of thought.
The E school of thought, you know, it's it's funny. It's almost sad actually the fact that he's
What he's
sort of
become.
what he's become, because he's such a good story. Like he just gives you a really good story, just like as a spectator, but also even like the more you involve yourself with him, the greater the story becomes almost.
Yeah, he obviously doesn't do it on purpose, but like, yeah, he's just like I'll say this. I think EE is in like that weird category of very interesting sort of like Greek hero archetypes. Like you sometimes see in esports where like there's this player, he's brilliant, but there's like some fundamental flaw that he can't fix about himself, right? And I think Eternal Envy is one of those players. Like other players I can think of, or like Naniwa, even Stefano to a certain extent,
Oh, for
Idra,
sure,
like
yeah.
all these guys have like fundamental flaws that they couldn't fix. Like Stefano, for all his brilliance, didn't have the rigor to like he didn't have like the discipline to truly become the greatest ever.
Well, didn't he also have the problem with like underage girls?
Yeah, that too.
Well,
But I was more talking about the competition thing.
right. No,
But I guess that technically part is part of it because like he was way more into like the Rockstar life than he was into
right.
the StarCraft life.
And that's actually something that I sort of miss about esports, like the whole, like the real. Like, I don't want to call them real personalities because I don't want to like deny anybody that's like not that person that they don't have a personality, but you know, like the whole almost edginess in a way, because
You
for
could be more
example,
raw back then.
exactly like at EPL for example this weekend, like we saw a little bit more of that, right? Like how the way Team Liquid was always shouting like sit
Oh,
down.
that's just Stewie 2K in general.
Well,
But
Stuchiu
yeah,
and Twists.
yeah.
Then Kerrigan
It's
also
just,
giving back a little bit.
but like, yeah, but those guys have always been like that more.
That's
It's
true.
like, no, I understand what you mean though. It's like because there's more to lose, people are just defaulting to like the bland sort of personality.
Yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate because there's so much money on the line, and which is weird though because if you look at traditional sports, there's so much money on the line too, but they know that their brand is so valuable, like their players and their own brand, that they can do that without fear of losing any money of it. Really, like
Like, I'll say this in CS:GO at least, it's generally fine to do that because nobody cares as much.
that's true.
Like it's not as painful. Like the reason people don't do it in CS:GO is because nobody has the guts. And what I mean by that is like, there's this like there's this quote. I don't know who fucking said it, but basically like if you go ahead if you're talking shit, you're basically just putting you're putting pressure on yourself because you're basically saying I not only am I going to do this like incredible thing, I'm also going to talk shit and prove it later. Like basically, right? Like, and nobody actually has the guts to. Not I won't say nobody, but like most people don't have the guts to like talk shit and then like take the hit when if you fails, right?
Well,
That's kind of how it goes in CS at least, or like most people aren't incapable of doing that.
Kyle used to. Unfortunately, he also has come to the conclusion that
Yeah,
yeah,
like most people just don't just most people just can't handle it. Like I think CS:GO and Dota 2 you probably get away with it the most. And in Dota 2 like I think the only guy who does it is honestly PPD, right? Like
yeah,
he's the
that's
only one
true.
who's got the guts to do that, but like nobody else really has the guts to do that. Um but like in games like League of Legends, Overwatch, um you're not going to have that much leeway to get away with that because of the way those scenes are built.
And
And then I
regulated.
guess in indie scenes, like even in indie scenes like Street Fighter or whatever, like that one's being more controlled. In Smash, I think you could say whatever the fuck you want actually to a certain extent. But yeah, like that's kind of it's just a weird phenomenon, I guess. It's just I guess in this case, esports follows life, and that nobody and that it's getting harder and harder to like be honest to that level, to that degree, and to like because I don't know. I guess offense culture is just too much for people, and like and you're risking more and more each day. I guess so. No, it's just not a risk most people should be willing to take.
No, that's true. Unfortunately, so which is especially in something like esports that's always been so niche and so
Yeah,
edgy in its way that we're losing all of that.
yeah.
Because I mean,
It's kind of sad.
if we just look back, like just maybe even like 4 to 5 years ago, that's just so different, you know.
Yeah,
But now, you know, and now it's sort of like been so established that everybody needs to show up in like their best suit, and um, I don't know. And this is why it's still sort of like, and I think everybody in Dota right now, and maybe even more so in a lot of other esports titles, you know, they romanticize like Too Good, for example. I think most people, the way they
Two could
remember
got
him.
balls of steals. First of
I
all,
know.
like,
He
he
got
wasn't
balls.
just doing it for the in the game. He was doing it in fucking China.
Yeah. And even before that though, he was always sort of like the guy that would always go against. Like he never gave a fuck about anything
Yeah,
because
that's
he knew
that.
that his appeal would outweigh anything that any sponsor might have against him. And even more so, a lot of sponsors that did sponsor him knew full well what they were getting into because that's worth it.
Yeah, that's his that's simultaneously his greatest strength and greatest weakness. Didn't give a fuck either way,
Well,
right?
I would actually
That's
argue.
all like that. The reason it's his great weakness is because he also obviously didn't prepare a lot of the times.
Yeah, he definitely didn't.
Like there, like it just happens happens to be really talented and can get away with it.
I'd actually
So
argue his biggest weakness right now is his own game. I feel
he
like if he had,
still can't get over that.
I feel like if he hadn't started developing that, though, I guess it's all. I mean, I guess for him it was always like, you know,
A passion project.
yeah. But it's just so unfortunate because he could still be like the best host or whatever he wants to be,
Not in
really.
Dota.
Well, it's it's difficult to compare him really to other hosts because his style is so vastly different.
No, I mean the reason I think it's not in Dota is because I think like Valve is
Oh,
way more
Valve.
involved in
Yeah,
Dota. So I don't know. You know that joke. You know that joke. The only time I think he could have done it was when ESL was like going was if ESL wanted to go full revenge mode. And what I mean by that is like when Valve was kind of like fucking over some of the ESL events and like the whole Facebook stream thing. Like
right.
I think if I think the only I think if ESL wanted to throw the gauntlet down, they should have hired Too Good as their host at that point. But
That
since
would
they
have been
didn't do it then, I
hilarious.
don't think they'll do it now.
That would have been hilarious. But yeah, no, they are trying very hard right now to get a major next season.
ESL?
Um, yeah, because they didn't get one this season, did they?
No, they
I don't
didn't.
think they did. So they've been
And
trying. They've been trying
I
really
think
hard.
I think Birmingham is probably one of the best Dota 2 events outside of TI.
Yeah, I agree. It's a little bit unfortunate that in Dota it's really difficult to get teams to attend the non-major events.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You have to pay them, as far as I know,
Yeah,
or some shit.
well, I guess you have to incentivize them.
Yeah.
There've been ideas thrown around from like business class flights and all that shit to make them sure that they really want to come. Um,
Yeah.
and this is, I mean, I guess this is another topic we could spend hours on, but this is something that I really dislike about the Dota Pro circuit. And where I look with a little bit of envy towards the CS side, because yeah, you have the major system, and don't get me wrong, the CS major system has a lot of things that I would like to fix, because it's like, first of all, Legends is already something I would like to see fixed.
Like I think it's really obvious fix. You just take the DPC system from last year and put it in, and you're done.
Yeah, probably actually. That's a
Like
good point.
that's literally all you need to do. Because like the CS system like won't have any of the problems that Dota 2 system had. Because it's not like it's bringing from nothing. Like it's fairly established which ones are the good ones, which ones are the bad ones. So it's like it's so obvious, but they won't do it.
Yeah. But you know this, and that's a funny thing though, that like the CS and the Dota team, they're so stubborn. Like there's been so many rumors and like so many people commenting every now and then. Like apparently the teams are at odds with each other, and like constantly competing who makes more money for the company effectively. And that's why it took Dota so long to adopt the major format, because it was basically admitting that having majors was something that.
Oh my god, they had a good idea. Fuck those guys. That's literally what I think is happening.
Yeah, that happens all the time. That's why, you know, a lot of times when something good happens in CS, like the Overwatch system, for example, something that is so simple but so effective, where you let the community basically be the judge of, you know, things. This is something that a lot of people want in Dota, but Dota just won't implement it.
Well, I mean, the problem with implementing a Dota is like, part of me thinks the entire Dota 2 community will turn on techies players.
Well, that's also true. That's also very true.
Like that was the first thing I thought of, where it's like, oh, I can pick players I can avoid, and then the first thing I thought of was like, will a techies player ever play a game again? I don't know.
That's also very true. Well, the Dota community is fucked up in that way.
Man, you racist against specific heroes. Rest in peace, techies. And which other ones have you guys hated over the years? Ho ho ha ha.
Were you like? Did you follow the scene when Techies came out, or before he came out? Did you
in Dota EX?
No.
And Dota All Stars, I mean.
No, in Dota 2. So he came out in like
2000. Yeah, I was there. I was around for that period.
I think he was voted in 2013, I believe.
I was actually shocked because like I played a lot of techies when I was playing Dota All Stars.
Right.
So like I understood like this isn't a Dota hero in the normal sense. Like it fundamentally alters the entire game. Like I was shocked that somebody would have wanted to vote this character in.
So I think a lot of people romanticized the hero, myself included. There's actually still a comment of mine up on Reddit, which it's one of my most upvoted comments. It says, "Oh, Dota, wait, we can vote in a new hero. Techies, here we come." And I did vote for Techies, and
I can't believe nobody remembered what it was like playing against techies. I think it's actually fun being techies. I'll be honest, that's why I played it. But it's like
same.
On the other side, it kind of sucks.
And that's the thing. At that point, so many people just forgot about that hero, but I think they only remember the good side of things, like playing the hero. But honestly, playing the hero in Dota 2 never felt as good as it did in Dota 1.
Yeah, it's because
players were just so much better in Dota 2.
Yeah, I think here's the problem: is like in Dota 1, nobody had any kind of concept of any kind of basic idea of how you're supposed to play the team game.
Yeah,
like you could actually carry games as a carry player by buying the wards, and like in Dota 1 at least, because like the funny thing was like it didn't really matter what items you got as much as it mattered like the vision, just because nobody ever cleared vision in that game.
Yeah, no, 100%. People wouldn't buy couriers. People were just like playing their own game, really, not even working as a team as much. So it was so much easier to abuse the game in like very simple ways.
Yeah, Techies is actually like a god. If it was actually a god back then, but it's like not that good now.
And I think this is why people romanticize the hero so much, because they remember the good things about him. I certainly did. But it doesn't obviously work in Dota anymore, where it's so much more competitive. I think Dota 2, and I mean, I guess this really goes for every game now that we're so exposed to like the esport side of things, or like the professional gamers. And I mean, just in general, you know, there's streamers, there's video
Mhm.
content. It's so much more competitive because now everybody knows everything, or
Yeah.
can have access to everything. Because back then, I didn't even know like the benefits of wards.
Nobody even fucking knew there were strategy guides. Like you can actually like pick up a strategy guide and win like 30 games in a row
Yeah,
off of one hero back then.
and now there's like guides built into the game.
Yeah.
How the times have changed. Have you? And this is something that I meant to ask you actually at the very beginning. But have you played any of like the auto chess games?
No, I haven't played any of the auto chess games. I I probably should at some point. Like everybody, the way everybody talks about it, it sounds like it's way better than every other card game ever invented. Or I'm not even sure if it's supposed to be a card game or whatnot.
Well, it's basically a card game because you basically build your own deck, right?
Hmm.
It's like a deck builder essentially. Did you play Hearthstone?
I played some of it, yeah.
Did you play
Like
Artifact?
I played some of that too. Like
Oh,
they're all right. Like that's about it.
I think what's really addictive about these games, about the auto chess games, is the fact that it's like a new blank slate every game. It's not like something that
Mhm.
you need to like build on. Like you don't have to like buy anything or prepare anything to go into a game. It's just very new, and everybody starts at that same blank slate. So it's in that sense, it's a very similar feeling to Dota. Like everybody
Mhm.
starts at the same level.
Yeah.
But yeah, you should give it a try. I think it's a lot of fun, and I mean, it might just be the next battle royale. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I the thing about auto chess is like it kind of just makes me sad because like it's just a constant reminder of how everybody fucked up the mod scene for for
Ooh,
multiplayer games.
that's a very good point.
Valve, you fucked up. Blizzard, you fucked up. Like, what is going on?
You know, it's funny though because Valve now had the golden opportunity to unfuck their own mod scene by just making sure that the arcade system works so perfectly well that everybody's gonna keep on playing Dota Auto Chess.
Yeah, but
But
they won't.
they
No
made their
way.
own client instead, and now Dota Auto Chess, despite being fundamentally the best game, I stand by that. Dota Auto Chess is the best auto chess game. It has the worst like user experience because oh, guess what? There's no functioning queue system. Guess what? The servers die every 2 minutes.
Oh,
Um,
well, now it's literally competing against a Valve game. Like,
yep,
they won't ever fix it ever. So,
it's really sad. And
mhm.
and you'd think that Valve of all people would recognize how powerful the mod scene is or can be, having two
No,
titles
I
that
think
literally spawned off of a mod.
I think it's just straight up spite. Like, you know how like the CS:GO Dota 2 team won't. Here's the funny thing about both of them. I think they're actually both some of the better esports communities, but both of them could be so much greater if they just copied each other sometimes. But they won't do it, obviously.
so,
And
so isolated.
um, yeah, like they just pretend the other guy doesn't exist. If they do something, it's like a black mark against it. It's like a scarlet letter. We will never have the DPC system in CS:GO. Oh, congratulations! You just fucked us all, didn't you? But like the problem with the whole mod thing is like I don't think I don't think Blizzard will ever go down for it because Dota left them and then it became fucking massive in like 3 or 4 different games, right? Like even like Heroes of New Worth is technically bigger than Heroes of the Storm. Obviously, you have League of Legends, you have Dota, and then part of them will think, part of the mind will think, we will never let that happen again, and thus we will screw over the entire mod scene. And then in Valve's case, like I think part of them is still pissed off that Counter Strike is like bigger than its original Half Life, right? So it's like that's kind of another thing, and they're not gonna let that go either. So
Yeah, maybe.
here we are.
Here we are. Um, Now that you mentioned Blizzard, I'm kind of wondering if they would ever consider doing their own auto chess now.
Of course,
Oh,
they love copying their competition.
but then making an inferior product.
Yeah,
Actually, I shouldn't say that considering Overwatch is bigger than Team Fortress 2.
yeah, but everybody who's played both tells me Team Fortress 2 is better.
Same.
So
I've heard that too. I've heard that too. See, and this is something that I'm always curious about. Like, how long is this like Blizzard loyalty gonna last? Like this whole like, oh, whenever Blizzard pumps
well,
something out,
you
like we're
just
gonna
go look at Star Wars fans and you have your answer.
just loot boxes. Is that it?
Hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
man. Look, like you know how many bad movies Star Wars has come out with, and they're like just, and their fans are just like completely fine with it.
I mean the
Well,
last
not fine,
look.
but like
All right,
they'll stick to it.
your opinion on The Last Jedi and a new Force Awakens.
I haven't watched either of them because like I kind of gave up on Star Wars a long time ago.
That's
So I guess
unfortunate.
it's not fair for me to say it's like terrible because I haven't watched them to truly judge.
That's
But I'm
unfortunate
gonna go ahead
because
and
they're
guess
both
they're
terrible.
terrible.
They're both terrible. New Force Awakens is literally a New Hope. Force Awakens is literally a New Hope. That's why I keep saying a new Force Awakens because it's
Hmm.
literally a New Hope. And The Last Jedi is just, I don't know. It's all over the place. Like it feels like both movies are trying to be so much that they're not. And like I don't know, they're trying so many things that, well, I don't know. It's like a whole, again. This I could spin on a whole. I'm not that even that passionate of a Star Wars fan. Like I'm not even
Yeah.
that big of a fan of of Star Wars trilogy, the original one. I don't even
Hmm.
hate. I don't even necessarily hate the prequels. Yeah, but I am actually very furious about what they did with Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, mostly because I was just hyped to have a new franchise. But
Yeah.
instead, we're stuck with the MCU.
Yeah.
Well, I say
That's about
stuck.
it.
I'm a big fan of the MCU, but it just feels like where are other good movies outside of the MCU? You know?
I don't think they exist.
Well, some of them, but it's just eh.
Like if you're talking about like a franchise that big, like I
Yeah.
don't think they exist. Right? Like I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah.
I guess Harry Potter was the last successful franchise outside of the
I
MCU.
guess the Fast and the Furious, that entire thing.
True.
That's pretty. That one's kind of ridiculous.
True. I
That
never got
that,
into
that one
it.
has allowed itself to be so ridiculous. I like I can't even be like that angry about its ridiculousness.
I
I can't
feel
even be
the
that angry.
same.
It's like you're 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 like, well, yeah, you're dumb, but at least you went like 10. At least you went the full gauge. You went like 12 out of 10 dumb. So it's like
And
I just kind of respect it.
and they don't even want to necessarily be taken seriously either, right? They realize
Yeah,
that they're dumb. So like
yeah. So
now
like I kind of respect it in a sense.
suddenly they're gonna be like in the jungle or whatever, and I don't know, dude. And
Yeah,
for some, I always thought it was, so I've never watched a single. Well, I've watched enough to, I think, is properly assess that it's a dumb series,
yeah. It's pretty
but
dumb.
it feels like they're trying to outdumb each other every time they do another one.
Yeah. It's like it's just fun, dumb, careless entertainment. It's like yeah, whatever.
Oh well. Uh, Before we head this off,
Hmm.
um, since I brought it up, MCU power ranking. Did you watch all the MCU movies?
I watched most of them.
All right,
Um,
give me a top three.
top
You
three.
watched Endgame, right?
Yeah, I watched Endgame.
All right, cool.
Let's see. I'd probably pick. Is this in order or not in order?
Well, you can. You doesn't have to be in order.
All right. Probably pick Iron Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Civil War.
Obviously, Iron Man 1 and Guardian of the Galaxy 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Civil War.
So
All right. All right.
I think those were the probably three best
Solid
in
choice.
my
Solid
opinion.
choice.
Yep.
Solid choice. I also agree on Iron Man. I haven't
Yeah.
made my own top three yet, but I agree with Iron Man because
Yeah. I feel like Iron Man was probably the best of all of them. Still, to be
it's one of
honest, like
it's one of my favorite origin movies in general.
yeah.
Origin stories.
Like because I think origin. Here's the thing. Like I think origin stories in general are just really bad.
Ooh.
That one happened to be really good. So there you
See,
go.
and this is something that I think also gets romanticized in the MCU a lot. Like they actually have a lot of bad origin stories. Thor was bad. Hulk was bad. I mean, Hulk was so bad they changed the actor.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange, in my opinion, was actually really bad. I just think they had really great CGI, but I think on the story level, there was really bad story.
Yeah.
Yeah, Captain America was whatever. It was just not forgettable.
It's just average.
Yeah, but yeah, no, Guardians of the Galaxy also. I don't know, something about Chris Pratt makes me laugh. They have good
Yeah.
soundtrack too.
Yeah. That was a good comedy.
Yeah,
The other one I might have thrown in there was like Thor, maybe Thor 2, or was it Thor 3? Forget which one.
Ragnarok.
Yeah, Ragnarok.
That's the third one. Yeah,
Yeah.
that one was hilarious too. I am so much looking forward to another Thor movie with Taika Waititi. Taika.
Yeah. I'm happy he's the one vendor that's technically survived, because he's the funniest of them.
Well, there's another one. Well, there's three that survived technically. Well, four, I
Oh
guess, if
yeah.
you count. Well, obviously Captain America technically survived too, but
But he's not
alright,
gonna be in another movie.
he's not gonna be
like,
in
come
another
on.
one. So we have Hawkeye and Hulk. Hulk might just not be really a fighter anymore because his arm kind of burned off. But
Yeah, like the problem with Hulk, I guess, is like his inherent like dramatic problem is like he's not supposed to ever actually reconcile his two sides, but he already did that. So like,
True.
there's no point in ever putting him in a movie.
That's true. Plus, he's also way too strong. That's why they keep nerfing him in every movie. Like
Yeah,
the
man.
last fight scene he was in, he was beaten, and that's basically it.
Yeah, it's a terrible way to go for him too. But what can you say?
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah, I don't know. Looking forward to the next one though. Spider-Man coming out. You a big Spider-Man
Mhm.
fan?
Not big, but like there have been some good comics in his day. Not bad.
One of the things I'm really jealous about, by the way, about Americans, they had superhero comics. We never had them in Germany, so a lot of these things I never knew until I watched all those movies.
Oh yeah, well they're hit and miss, like just like every other medium.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've tried to catch up on some comics, and it's just not my thing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I just grabbed the wrong one. I think I read the Spider-Man comic, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Steven, it was a lot of fun talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining me. And I mean, for anybody that's curious where to find you, I mean, links will be in the description, and we'll probably be on another podcast in like about a week or so. So
Yeah,
we'll probably
talking
talk
about
again
how
soon.
EG failed against Gambit.
That
You
was,
failed.
That was it's so tough for like eHome too, because they like so many things needed to happen for eHome to lose their spot, and it's almost about to happen. Like I think
Yeah, there's
Gambit,
no
they,
way eHome. I think eHome is not going to TI.
yeah, well, at least not directly.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks again. Yeah, and we'll see each other in the next podcast.
Yep.